Greetings and welcome to another episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. I'm your host, Scott, and with me is, as always, is my enlightening co-host, Caleb. Yeah, it's true. Enlightening. You surprise me every day.
Yeah.
How's it going tonight?
Good. Did we ever figure out what Bash Night stood for? I can't remember.
Let's make up something. I mean, it's gotta, I don't know. I
Bring
don't
a
think we did.
shoehorn. That's
Bring,
what we're
there
going
you
with.
go. Very effective ministry tactic. Bring a shoehorn. How many examples of Jesus can you make to a shoehorn in one sermon?
Oh man.
Oh boy. No, we did not figure that out. And like many things about our youth group time, we have not figured it out yet. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
um, but today's a fun one. We'll talk about that in a second. But we are back here to talk about the experience growing up as youth group kids in the 90s and how that has shaped our adult lives. We'll talk to old friends about their faith journeys spanning from the 90s to today and discuss current cultural topics through the lens of someone who grew up during that era. Caleb, who's our guest today? This is a fun one.
Today we had the pleasure of being joined by Henry and Henry Michael, and Henry was the lead pastor, the
Mm-hmm.
lead pastor. That's the preaching pastor. He was the
That's right.
pastor that joined shortly after John had been hired and took over. And then his son, Henry Michael, also joined us. And he joined us not just because he was related to the lead pastor, but because for a period of time he was also the youth pastor and is currently a pastor at Five Oaks. And the church that we were raised at. So, two guests today, Henry and Henry Michael.
And I was also Henry Michael's youth leader for a time as well when he was growing up in the youth group. So a lot of connections,
Yeah,
a lot of deep roots here with the Five Oaks crew. So if you're part of Five Oaks or have been in the past, welcome. We hope you enjoy this chat that we have because I was super excited to talk to these guys and really gain the perspective of A, what did that youth group mean back in the day? How did it function? How was it different from those around it? But really, what did it mean to that community, that congregation? And then also to get the perspective of Henry Michael to say this is how it's growing and this is how it's changed over time. It was a really good combo of those two time frames.
yeah. Yeah, it was interesting to hear kind of, you know, the youth group kind of started to explode and it was some big things were happening. And that's when Henry came in and he had perspective. He has thoughts on how, his arrival, what it meant, what things he had to change, and so that was interesting to hear. Probably stuff that real honestly I didn't know was happening at the time. Conversations I
For
had no
sure.
idea were happening at the time.
For sure.
So yeah, I think that was really interesting to hear kind of like you got an outsider's perspective, but not really an outsider because he immediately became an insider and had to
Hmm.
had to get involved and was forced to deal with us. Be a way of putting it. But yeah, it was an interesting aspect and kind of an interesting perspective to hear about.
Yeah, I will remember many, many things during that time because I did not grow up in that church like a few of you did. I came along a little bit later, but I kind of got in right before it got super big because we were still meeting in the house and
Yeah.
everything in the high school. And I remember when he was hired and somebody played a um, pipe cleaner joke on him and that sort of thing, and he was all in good spirits. And I mentioned this kind of early on, but I was always really impressed by the fact that he wanted to kind of be included in the youth group, and that wasn't necessarily his job, right? His job was to be lead pastor, teaching pastor of the church. But we talk about, was it a good thing that that youth group was so big, or did it hold the church back? And he had some really interesting perspectives on that. But immediately when he jumped in, he was part of a lot of youth activities, and that was cool. He was someone
Yeah.
to look up to. Great guy.
Yeah. I think he recognized the situation he was stepping into, and there was a value in him being connected to what was the primary focus of the church at the time. It felt like the youth group was the primary focus. So learning that, understanding
Hmm.
it, getting connected, but then also knowing what needed to change and being able to vocalize and lead. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a really unique situation to walk into where they've got an established youth pastor that is succeeding and is a big personality. I think nobody would deny that John's a big personality. And so, yeah, it just is, it kind of highlights the dynamics he had to deal with.
Yeah, and then we get Henry Michael's perspective too, which offers that, hey, 30 years later, what do these things look like? And some of the things are very much the same. But he led that youth group for a long time, and he took it from a place that where it was struggling to where it is now, and now they have some really good roots in both Cottage Grove and Woodbury areas, and he's done a great job with it. So it's really fun to have both of those again
Yeah.
eras discussed in the same interview. So. On that note, we really appreciate you all listening. Again, if you're part of Five Oaks or have been, we hope you really enjoy this. And yeah, thanks for listening.
Stick around for the epilogue. It's got a funny story at the end. I want to quickly remind everyone that the views and opinions expressed on this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s may not be held by or even approved of by everyone appearing on this episode. One of the goals of this show is to give everyone a safe space to share their opinions and thoughts on deeply personal matters of faith. We are not looking to start an argument, but instead we want to let people share how they feel. During our interviews and discussions, we may not represent every point of view on a given subject, and we understand that this may be frustrating at times, but it is the nature of a podcast discussion with a limited amount of time. We also know and want to acknowledge that our memories of events that happened 25 to 30 years ago may not be 100% accurate. We assume everyone's best intentions as they share how they remember the experience of their youth. Now, back to the show.
All right, we are joined by two very special guests. Henry and Henry Michael are joining us tonight, and this is a pleasure, a real treat for us to chat with you two. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Henry is our former pastor. He was our pastor, and we were youths at the church, and Henry Michael's his son and has been kind of following some footsteps of his. So, guys, welcome. Really, really great to see you.
Great to be here.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us. So we've been trying to do this for a while, and we finally were able to nail down a time, and here we are. Obviously, you two have as much history as anybody that we've talked to with our specific youth group. So I just want to kind of go back and start with that experience that you all had with our youth group, because, Henry, your situation was a little unique. You kind of came in as that youth group was already pretty well established. I do remember meeting you for the first time in the old farmhouse. I'm sure there was like a prank involving pipe cleaners or something. I can't remember exactly what happened. Jolene was involved. And, you kind of came in the middle of maybe a chaotic situation. So, and Henry Michael, you were obviously a youth growing up during that time too. So take us back 30 years ago. What was it like for you to kind of join and start up in that youth group?
Well, I think when you guys were in the youth group, Henry Michael was just a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably started middle school about 3 years. What time? Yeah, so I'm not sure how much overlap, if any, there was.
Well, I was Henry Michael's youth leader for a while.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I was in fourth grade when we moved to Minnesota, so it was a couple of years later before I jumped in.
Yeah. And it was a real attractor to me when I looked at the church, when I was candidating and all that and looking for a church. I was an associate pastor in Kansas, and I was feeling like, spreading my wings and being a lead pastor somewhere. And the vibrancy of the youth group gave the church, I think, a lot of confidence. And it was very, very impressive and very, very different. I would always joke that we were a youth group that had a church, or if we weren't careful, we were going to become a youth group that had a church.
Yeah, indeed. We've had that memory very vividly with a lot of other youths from that time. It was, kids like me. My family didn't go to the church, right? I was invited by a few others, and there are a lot of kids there whose families just didn't go, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Much to John's credit, he was a great leader, brought in a lot of people. But I'm sure that was part of the intrigue for you, is to have that backbone.
Yeah, a lot of my experiences with it were either through John or in those early years. Like when you guys were there, or I would go to Camp Getaway and play football it would usually be Mike quarterbacking one team. I would be quarterbacking the other team.
Hmm.
And that field had so many holes in it. I'm just totally surprised I didn't twist an ankle. And then Challenge. I probably went to Challenge. Did you guys go to Challenge in Purdue?
For sure. Yep.
So
I
I
went
went.
once. Yeah.
Those were some of my experiences. And then you guys were, around on the weekends too. You sat together. Kind of the youth group that the ones that
Mhm.
came to church were always there in the front left-hand side from
Yep.
the stage. So yeah.
I do remember the football now that you mention it. I do remember specifically you being very kind and soft spoken about it, and Mike just talking trash the whole time. That's who he was. And both of you were really good. I also remember, frankly, I being not, we weren't by any means part of the process, but kind of watching the process happen of you coming on and then you yourself being involved. I thought it was really cool that the head pastor would be like, yes, and I will also do this youth stuff. And I was like, whoa, this guy's awesome. So really good first impressions made that way.
Cool.
Henry, Michael, how about you? What do you remember kind of starting up? Because it probably would have been a 7th grade entry point
Yeah.
for you at that point. What do you remember kind of starting at that point as a kid?
Oh man, obviously it's the kidnapping was the first memory,
Yep.
and yeah, I had my friends David and Will. I don't know if you remember them.
Yep.
They were both. We were having a sleepover or we were supposed to be having a sleepover that night, and a bunch of teenagers came ripping through our house, and we were, screaming and running around, and I had escaped, and they were just like, "All right, you're not coming then," and I was like, "All right, I'm coming." So I walked her back, and they like blindfolded us and drove us around, and I remember that being really fun because we stayed in John's basement, I think, like a bunch of
Hmm.
smelly 7th graders staying in his basement, something I never would have done as a youth pastor. And then we were just playing all those wild games. That's
Mhm.
that's the first thing I remember about youth group. Definitely have a lot of memories.
I'm I can't I don't have a specific memory, but I'm pretty sure at least me and probably Caleb were part of your kidnapping. So that was we've gone over that in our podcast
Yeah.
in many early episodes, just how crazy that was. So
Yeah, well, I think the every leader had like a permission from my dad that they were allowed to hurt me as much as they wanted. And so, like, they got too much joy out of it, to be honest. And I remember because,
mm,
like,
yeah.
Mike was he volunteered specifically to take care of me on youth group nights, and
Sounds
I'll never
right.
forget a time where he destroyed me in the
Yeah.
hallway. 'Cause I was running away from him doing something dumb or something. But yeah, I think they got a little too much glee out of my screams and my pain.
I think they did. I think you had a target on your back from day one. Sorry to say, and not that you did anything wrong, but just
Yeah,
maybe that's how it is.
I didn't deserve it at all.
No, no, you're a
That-
super
But
easy
for
kid.
the record, he deserved it all.
Confirmed.
I'm pretty sure Mike brought that up on his episode when he was on. Like,
Absolutely.
I think he's talked specifically about like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was somebody had talked to him about it, or like so. So I think you're not wrong in your assumption that there was a bit of a target and intentional.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, 30 years later that we targeted you. So please forgive us.
You're forgiven.
One other interesting thing from early on. So I came in February, and I think it was in September, October, whenever Camp Getaway happened.
Mhm.
I was like, I said to John, John, I haven't heard you promoting yet. I mean, aren't we like a couple of weeks away? And I haven't heard you do any promotion about it. And he goes, oh, they've been registered for 3 months, something like that. I'm like, what? He goes, oh, they've been registered for 3 months. I'm like, well,
Uh-huh.
what, and the more I found out, he would like really punish people if they didn't register in time. It was like you had to beg and all kinds of stuff. I don't think he charged any extra, but it was like you had to go through it if you didn't register in time. And I had never experienced, I mean, at the church in Wichita, the great youth group there, they would be the night before the retreat, they would be calling to register and get about a third of the students. I'd never seen anything like that. And that wasn't the first thing or the last thing that I saw that I had never seen before in John's leadership. He was kind of crazy. One time I told him to change something, and he goes, "Henry, you told me," and I had told him this. I told him, I don't know what exactly it is that you do that makes you so, that the youth group does so well that I'm afraid to say anything to like, he would do some things that I'm like, no, you got to stop doing that. And he would go, well, that might be the thing that leads to my success. Our success. I'm like, oh, okay, just keep doing it. That kind of. The only one I brought my foot down was mission mission groups because you had to like go through a tribunal to go on a mission trip.
Yeah.
And you had to apply, and like four people would ask you a million questions, and you had to
Yeah.
be a super spiritual, 10th grader to be able to go. I go, parents want their kids to go because it is a life-changing experience.
Mm.
You can't keep people away unless I mean they're really being bad or something like that. You just can't do that. And I think he changed that eventually. But other than that, and it probably shouldn't have changed. I don't know because you don't mess with his formulas. So
Yeah, it's one thing that we didn't notice and only found out talking to other people. Sorry, John, to talk about you, but your episode is either like right before this one or right after, so you'll have your say. But a lot of, we talked to Tim Boobar, we talked to a couple other people, and we didn't really realize how regimented John was and how, and we knew he was driven, but we didn't really realize how just super type A he was about all of this to get it organized and really pushed through and done to perfection. And that paid off in multiple ways. So it's funny that you bring that up as well from your perspective.
yeah.
Well, the youth group itself, obviously well established. People signing up months in advance for different events, that sort of thing. Like from both your perspectives, as Henry, someone who kind of saw it from the beginning, and Henry Michael, someone who was deeply involved with it later on. What does that group, and what did that group mean to the church itself?
Yeah, I said earlier, I think it gave the church a lot of confidence, which was really good, because it really marked it out as a very, a church that was doing really well. Even when, the attendance was very low. I think when I came, it was a little over 100 average attendance.
Mm-hmm.
But the youth group was running, probably 50 at that time. And, but it also held us back a little bit. And I remember going to a board meeting, I don't know how many, maybe a couple of years in, and I went and said, I need John to be an associate pastor, not the youth pastor anymore. And he was good with this. And it is going to mean that the youth group is not going to thrive as much because he isn't going to be giving all of his time to it. And this is where I gave kind of the speech and said, we can't, if we don't, we are going to be a youth group that has a church. The church will not be able to afford all the staff for the youth group and everything like that. We'll never be able to move forward. And they're like, well, we're here because of the youth group. Everybody on the board was like, we're here because of the youth group.
Whoa.
And I did my first kind of pounding the table almost type thing. I said, well, look, John, I do 17 things. I had 17 things on the list. I said, John does one. I can't do it. I can't do it like that. And you remember Terry, she was on the board. She looked at me, she goes, Henry, you need to do that kind of thing more often. The pounding the table.
Very
But
nice.
they agreed to it, and really for John's retirement, I sent a message basically, this church was never quite the same after he left, and the amazing growth that we saw was due to him. I mean, uh, it's amazing what he did because he eventually was executive pastor and
Yeah.
just get things done. And I don't have a just get things done bone in my entire body.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it served him well, and he went on to obviously do the same thing in Pennsylvania too.
yeah.
Henry Michael, how about you? Like from your perspective, you grew up in it, and then later on, you were deeply involved with it. Like, what did that youth group mean to the church?
I mean, I was too young to like when you guys were there. I was too young for it to like matter that much to me, other
Mm.
than like seeing you guys up front. So I guess there was a little bit of a hope to be a part of that someday. But by the time I was in youth group, I mean, because I had John for a couple of years and then Tim for a couple of years,
Hmm.
and we went from farmhouse to having a building. And so I was kind of in the middle of the transition where the youth group just looked different and became completely different from what you guys had as a youth
Hmm.
group. And so um I don't know if I remember much of like, man, I wish it was this way or whatever. I just think there was like a watching you guys, and you guys all seemed to have a ton of fun. And I remember um Bill would intern and we were so mean to him. Like we were so ruthless to Bill. Um and so like because you guys would come back and be a part of stuff, and
Yeah.
or some of you guys would be, and so like we didn't like show that we wanted to be you guys or like to have that same experience because we were super mean to Bill especially. But overall, like I think that's what I remember from that. But it changed so much that I think, and I mean I was young, so I think
Hmm.
I kind of lost that train of thought. It just became what I did and helpful part of my story.
When you were in youth group, it kind of did transition too to like because like when we were in youth group, it was a lot of kids whose parents like Scott didn't go to the church, but by the time you were there, it had kind of transitioned, right? And it was much more of a church home for you. So that I mean, did that feel different? Where like, oh, this is just part of my church home. Where like for me, it was kind of like I don't know, it was all of my friends, and it was like this weird like my high school friends. I had brought them into a church where instead it was like, oh, I was raised with these kids, and now
Yeah.
this is our community here, and it just it's but the church is serving the youth group instead of the youth group kind of maybe poorly leading the church.
Yeah. No, I think it was a little bit of both because there's definitely some church kids or church friend like Will and David, my two best
Mm.
friends. They were a part of the church. Their families went to the church. Um, but then like we would have you guys had bash night. I think you called it barf night at first and it became
Yeah.
bash night. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
'Cause- yeah. So and it was a huge invite night, and I'd bring like half the football team to camp getaways, and I got a parking ticket, or I got a speeding, reckless driving, and running a stop sign ticket on the way once to camp. We had all these football players in the back, so there
Sweet.
was still that element of bringing people, and I don't remember a ton from like how many of them stuck all the time, but they would always be coming on trips, like to challenge to camp getaway, and people would look forward to it because they were so fun. To bash night, and the nasty sumo suits, and so it was always for me. Like I had friends there, and I also had friends at school, and they'd come in and out. I
Mm.
think during that time.
Well, one of the
Interesting.
things that stood out about when you guys were in that youth group, and I've talked about it a million times throughout the years, was uh, how you guys would welcome anybody who was new to the youth group.
Mm.
And you would take them out afterwards, Applebee's, or where would it have been?
Probably
Perkins,
or
probably.
Perkins. Yeah.
Spent a
Perkins.
lot of time at Perkins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you would take them there, and the whole thing was telling them all the fun stuff that they were going to experience if they became part of the youth group. And I was I mean, I was floored by that. And I don't think we ever got back to anything quite like that. And I've always thought that that was just one of the most incredible things that I've ever seen in a church.
Hmm.
A church, not just a church youth group, a church, the commitment that you guys had to doing that.
There was a lot of enthusiasm. I think Henry Michael, you said your best friends were there. My best friends were there, right? And it's like, yeah, we were welcoming. We were really, and John, frankly, really taught us to get outside that comfort zone, and for better or worse. And there was a lot of, you're not sitting next to this person at this event. You're going to do this at this. He was always separating us, and it was a little bit of growth by that separation, and then keeping us apart so we could kind of form other groups with people. And I do remember that too. It was kind of like, yeah, we want you to join in on the fun. Why not?
Mhm.
In terms of just the youth group's importance, we talked about how established it was. How are things different for a youth group now? Is it? Obviously it's still there. We've talked to many people who still volunteer there, but is it as vibrant? Is it as important to the church, or is the importance maybe a little bit different in how the church functions?
From a lead pastor perspective, just as important. We had a short period where the youth group really struggled, and it had an impact on the whole church, and certainly the students that were part of it when it was struggling. And it's still, it's amazing the impact that it has on students, and you can see it on their faces. You can just see it on their attitudes. And most, surveys that are out there that compare, here's what the typical um, student is going through these days emotionally and all this kind of stuff. And you have all of that in youth group, of course. And youth group kids going to be a diverse group of people, but the numbers are just ridiculously low of the high anxiety and depression and stuff like that. You're going to have cases, but overall the health, and it's definitely that way. You just see there's just not a whole lot of things in life that sports certainly fulfill some of that, but nothing quite like a youth group. And our youth group right now is extremely vibrant, and the students are really impressive. So it has an impact on the whole church still.
That's great. That's great. Henry Michael, what about you from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I was a youth pastor for 7 years, about maybe 6 years, 7 years, can't remember. Um, and yeah, I mean, I came in a time of struggle, and I think when we first started, I just realized right away, like, we want to have a thriving youth group because there are so many kids that are struggling, and especially when 2020 came and all that kind of stuff. And so I think one of the biggest decisions, or the best decisions we ever made, was hiring the current youth pastor now, and having a special leader for middle school and having a special leader for high school. And they're very different. They're asking different questions. And high schoolers don't like to be around a bunch of sixth graders, and sixth graders are really intimidated by seniors. And so just making sure that we could split that and speak to what they're going through, and give them experiences that are helpful for what they're going through as well. I think middle schoolers are, for the first time, realizing that they can have faith, and high schoolers are, for the first time, in a broad sense, experiencing their faith for the first time. And so it's definitely a very helpful thing to have. Those trips are so foundational. The mission trips, the camps, the challenge type trips, they're very foundational for many of these kids as they're hearing things and experiencing things for the first time. So yeah, I think I'm here right now, actually. Youth groups tonight, and it was fun seeing people because I've been out of it this year. And I mean, since leaving, they've grown even a little bit. So it's been a flawless transition, and
Nice.
things are going super well. And yeah, it's exciting.
I'm glad to hear that. I mean, we're talking 30 years, right? Like, it's a long tenure. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe youth groups last that long, but like it's changed hands a few times. But there's still this through line of from when it started, even before Caleb and I, and that's a long time for a youth group to keep going that way. So good on you for
Still have some of the same names of things like Camp Getaway and things like that.
Yeah.
Started as Motel Getaway and then became
Yeah.
Camp Getaway and all that kind of thing. It really is. So it's really thriving. And mentioned COVID, 2020. It's one of my greatest memories. And I mean, I had some great ones, like going to Purdue. The worship at Purdue was just, I thought, phenomenal. And
Mhm.
it hit me probably even more than the students, I think, than you guys. And all kinds of memories from those early Camp Getaway. And I hated that camp. When I got there, I was like, John is so cheap. He is so cheap. This place is
He is cheap.
stupid. And yeah, I'm not, it was like $2.50 a night, something like that per student.
Oh my gosh.
It was, and I'm like, this place is a dump. And I didn't tell him that, but I'm thinking it like, oh, this is the last time. This is it. And by the end of the weekend, I loved that camp.
Yeah.
I just loved the camp.
Yeah.
So I had great memories and everything. But 2020, the students, some of the students planned a prom in the backyard of the church. There's a big concrete thing there, and it was a dance and all this kind of stuff. We came for about the last half an hour of it. It was amazing. It was amazing. In fact, they loved it so much that they said, let's do it again next year, even when there's a regular prom. Now, of course, by the next year, that didn't happen.
Right.
But it was just a beautiful thing during COVID. And by that fall, we had gone back to having regular youth group and everything. And there was a kind of an outbreak in the schools, and there was talk that they were going to close down the schools again. They didn't, but they were talk they were going to close down the schools again. And we had complied with the state on everything. And I remember thinking, if they close the schools and expect us not to have youth group, I'm going to go to the board and I'm going to request that we have it anyways. I mean, it was just, I just felt like, no way. Just the stats don't bear out that we have to keep kids away from each other, number one. And number two, it's just, there's so many bad statistics right now on kids, on students. And this is having such a positive impact on their lives that I could not imagine closing it down. That's how important I think it is. And we hired Kyler, who is now the youth pastor, to do middle school. It was a stretch financially for us at that time. And we just said, some of our glory days as a church was when we had two people. That was with Tim, Tim's time. And we know the impact it has on students. We know the impact it has on families. And we've just got to make this investment. And we did. And it has paid off. I mean, there's a lot of kids there tonight. It's a big deal.
That's awesome.
Can I ask a purely logistical question? So you guys are campus now, right? Five Oaks is a campus church. How's your youth group structured? Is it still like together and you rotate campuses, or it's just always at the main campus? And like, is that a new thing to battle? Is like, how do you have these kids who don't see each other on Sunday, but they're expected to be connected and close? You want them to be close to each other on Wednesdays. Is that a whole new like thing you guys are having to tackle and hurdle?
Yes and no. We're sharing youth groups. We're sharing men's, women's, and youth group, just so that we can have different ways for students and families to be involved in the life of our church. The nice thing is we're not that far away. Cottage Grove and Woodbury are very close.
Right.
And so a lot of these kids are going to go to school with each other, whether they know each other from church or not. We have a very high number of kids from Park High School. And so, which is the Cottage Grove school. And so yeah, we don't right now, we're doing that. And there's a possibility we'll always do that. There's a possibility, like I always tell people we could start a youth group tomorrow or in 5 years. It just has to make sense for everyone involved. And so I don't want to if we start a youth group, we'll probably start it in middle school. Um, Again, maybe not, who knows? But it's hard to rip high schoolers out once they're really connected. So we're not going to make
Yeah.
it a huge deal either way. And so there's not really any solid plans on what we're doing, but we're watching the numbers. We're making sure we're not overdoing it for the Woodbury campus. And there's different questions that are involved with sharing, just with different leaders that would come in, students they don't know, making sure they feel welcome, parents that we don't know. But the Woodbury team here has been really helpful in asking those questions and trying to figure out ways of getting around it. So yeah, who knows? We'll see.
It's part of what's led, I think, to being able to launch large. Already that congregation is more than twice as big as Five Oaks was when I came. So I think a big part of it is we're not having to tear the students away from student ministries. And we have very, very vibrant men's and women's ministries too, and same deal there. People can continue with that. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but that if there's something that could be a big deal down the line, it would be when we start developing two different, that kind of a thing. But right now it works for the most part. Yeah.
Sure. You'll figure it out all in due time. I mean, obviously it's worked itself out. So there's good pedigree for it continuing on in whatever format. So you can mention, Henry Michael, about, parents feeling comfortable, kids feeling comfortable with volunteers, that sort of thing. One of the things that's really stuck out to me when talking with not just Five Oaks graduates, but basically almost everybody who's gone through some sort of youth group is the fact that the adults who are volunteering made a tremendous impact on those kids' lives. And, the youth pastor, in our case, John, obviously did too. I'm assuming that the bigger things get, the harder that is to have one-on-one time with the youth pastor directly, or you're to have a direct impact that way. But man, those adult volunteers really, really make a significant difference. And I'm wondering, did we kind of understand that back then, or how aware are we, or were we, that those adults were really feeding into our lives?
Yeah, I don't think I mean, a big part of my testimony, I always share this with the sixth grade parents and the outgoing seniors, or I used to, the importance of those adults and the community that you form in middle school and high school. Because when I was growing up, I didn't know that was happening. I just kind of assumed that was normal. I'm the pastor's kid, so that's part of it. Like, everyone always wonders, what's it like to be the pastor's kid? I'm like, I don't know. I've ever had, so I don't know what the difference would be. But so, when I went to college, I kind of, because no one's ever said hey, community is important, and maybe they did and I didn't listen. Adults are important in your life. I kind of just thought, I'm a Christian on my own 2 feet. I can just go to college and do whatever I want, blah, blah, blah. And it didn't work out super well my freshman year in terms of just keeping my faith and doing, a lot of the things that I was hoping I wouldn't do. And so I was able to recognize that later and recognize hey, I need people around me. I need people speaking into my life, and recognizing how rare that actually is for so many people. So, I mean, even when I was a youth pastor, we would overload our groups with adults, no matter how many kids were there, because we know, one, not every kid connects with that one leader, let alone the youth pastor. Two, it's if we have too many leaders, you can't have too many one-on-one conversations, or at least 2-on-1 or something like that. And so it was tough getting adults to understand the importance of that, because if the leaders and the students are a 1-to-1 ratio, they feel like they're wasting their time, or they feel like they're not needed. And it was tough and kind of shocking to me that they didn't recognize, partially because it was so natural to me, or natural to my upbringing, that it's no, listen, this is so important that you're here, that you're able to connect one-on-one with this kid or that kid, and they're connecting really well with you. I've not seen them connect with any other kids before. And so, yeah. So, long story short, it definitely impacted my life in ways I didn't even realize it until later.
Hmm.
I was really aware of it because of how I'd been impacted in youth group and even in elementary school by adults
Mm.
in my faith, and not having a dad ever at home, I think added to that reflections on that. By the time I was in high school, I was already really aware that these adults and especially adult men were having a big impact on my life.
Hmm.
So
I take that to heart because my kid is 14 years old, 15, and at some point he's just stopped listening to me, of course, and he needs that influence in his life. And man, I'm so thankful as volunteers, and I feel like a slacker for podcasting right now and not volunteering downstairs. So maybe next year, but I also see it, frankly, your influence, John's influence, that sort of thing is understanding that role, not just only in the church, outside of the church. There's lots of ways you can volunteer and speak into kids' lives. I mean, for me, that's coaching. I love coaching my son's teams, and the older he gets, the more they're listening to you and watching you for sure, and mimicking you and that sort of thing. And we've had some really great connections with families with kids, and they've needed us and myself and my assistant coaches outside of the baseball team coaching or any coaching situation. We've been able to be there for them and just kind of encourage them as they're going through that tough high school time. So man, those adult volunteers and the kind of emphasis of giving your time to something that's speaking into their youth's lives, specifically in high school when times are tough. That goes a long way. So I think I learned that definitely from John for sure.
Sorry, I'm going to totally derail the conversation because it's what I do. Henry, when were you in youth group? Like, when was your high school years?
Mine?
me,
No,
Oh.
Henry.
Henry,
Yeah.
so I graduated from high school in '76.
Okay.
So worked
So-
back 6 years. Yeah.
I survived youth group in the 70s. We can now officially claim that one. Just wanted to make sure we got that out there. We've now done 2000s, 90s,
There you
80s, and
go.
70s.
Yeah.
All right, I'm done. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
That's good.
Spanning decades.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Scott. You probably had something, interesting to say, and I've ruined it.
And I've forgotten it now, so thanks.
Oh, perfect.
But if there are any of adult volunteers, and Henry, I know that you see them, and Henry Michael, do you see them all the time? Like those kids are probably never. A lot of them are probably never going to get the chance to say thanks in the proper context, right? They don't really know how much it means until they're older. I mean, they'll say thank you, when their time is done or whatever. But it's a lasting impact for sure.
Yeah.
I do remember we had a Sunday. I don't remember if I was in 6th or 7th grade, but we had a Sunday school class that one week my dad wasn't preaching. He thought he'd come in and teach it. And I think me and somebody else kept just disrupting and getting in arguments. And the whole time where I vividly remember him saying, "I will never do that again." And he left. I don't think he spoke to me for the rest of the day.
Oh, that's good. I don't remember it, but sounds right.
Sounds right. So on par with our experience. No. Well, yeah, that's great. I'm glad that still continues today because these things wouldn't happen without them. I have a question specifically for Henry Michael. Like, did your experience in youth group influence your decision or desire to jump in and get into ministry and be a youth pastor?
I don't know. I think my biggest influence in ministry was getting involved with Young Life in college. And so probably in some level, youth group played a part in that. And I think what made the most sense with Young Life is it was just a very much go and be a part of, their lives, high schoolers' lives, and not waiting for them to come to youth group. And so I fell in love with the ministry. I fell in love with the ministry model. I didn't want to go into ministry when I went to college. And I think that because I went to play football and do marketing. I quit after a year, and then got involved with Campus Crusade. And I wasn't like super pumped about, I mean, I loved the people there and everything, but it just wasn't my place to serve, and got involved with Young Life. And I think that's kind of what got me excited about possibly pursuing ministry at that time.
Okay.
And where you're doing the coaching and stuff too, coaching, sitting at lunches with students, going to the schools, going to the games, all that kind of stuff. That was just so much fun.
Yeah.
The Young Life director in Eau Claire, where he went to school, eventually we hired him to be like our family and discipleship pastor, and he's the one that hired Henry Michael. So that was interesting. It was not easy hiring Henry Michael. He wanted to hire Henry Michael. That's who, he did a nationwide search, and he knew Henry Michael, and it took probably 4 or 5 hours of time with the board for them to okay it. And John coming in and talking to them, and us coming up with these rules that we had to read also to the rest of the staff, so that there wasn't nepotism or a sense of, well, he's got the inside scoop on this or that. And we pretty much lived by it. I mean, we've had to kind of shift. We didn't talk a lot of ministry outside of the church because it just didn't feel right to spend more time talking to him about it than other people. And now I can do it, and and we do it a lot more, but we had to be really careful for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, don't know really anyone there anymore, but just kind of understanding there's a lot of people still there, frankly, from when I was there, but I can see people being really careful, but also intentional to do the right thing.
Right.
Well, but part of the reason the real reason we started this podcast is because John was always like, "Where's your faith at? I want your faith. I care more about your faith in 10 years." That sort of thing. His classic, very classic line, which none of us will ever forget. So just like in terms of youth group or youth ministry itself, like how have things changed over time? We've gone through a lot of things. You mentioned COVID and things like that. What are some things that are just really, do we have to do different these days?
I think that line still works, to be honest. I think about that a lot.
Nice.
And I know Jackie, I heard Jackie's take on it. She didn't like it a ton, and I get where she's coming from, but I've just seen so many kids who are rock stars in high school, but never were really equipped to deal with difficulties in their life. And their life became shambles after high school, and their story's not over yet. So it's not like it works in every single way. Like wherever you are right now doesn't mean that's where you're going to be in the future. But then I saw so many kids who really struggled in high school, but had people with them while they struggled. And you would never think that they were going to be the kids who, stuck it out in their faith. And they're the ones who really stuck it out, and because we weren't patting them on the back for every time they brought their Bible to school or wore a Christian t-shirt or, raised their hand in small group, like they were really struggling, and we walked with them. And so that's not always the case, obviously, but you just see it all across the spectrum. Where they are now is not where necessarily they're going to end up. And for a lot of them, you got to hope that as leaders, as you go through so many years of ministry and seeing so many kids go through some crazy stages, you just got to hope and pray. And as you're talking to parents, sharing with the stories of that their story's not done yet, and hopefully giving them a little bit of hope, because it's really hard to see your kids struggle, and it's almost, you almost wish that you didn't have to, but every story is different, and you just got to hope that eventually they really get it.
I think there's definitely, I mean, you read about it and then you experience it to one degree or another, the kind of renewal of it. There's aspects of life right now that feel a little bit like the 70s with the Jesus People movement. And there's just, you see it among celebrities, of course, and you never know where that's going to go. But There's like FCA is really taking off in a lot of the schools. At Park High School, it's huge, and they've got student-led Bible studies where they meet like at 6 in the morning, um, sometimes multiple times a week in somebody's basement, student-led, that kind of a thing. And it's an interesting time. Whereas I think when you guys were in youth group, um, I think you guys were there wasn't a movement as far as I remember, of like where people were talking about, the Joe Rogans of that world or whatever, talking about turning to faith or various things like that, and all the different people that are doing that. I don't think that was happening. You guys kind of stood out from everything else in a bigger way. So
Yeah, I think we were a little bit of the target of maybe some of that stuff that was happening in the 70s and 80s, right? They wanted to set up these programs or groups or whatever, the way that church would function, so that kids would continue to come in, because people early on were realizing that the maybe more the traditional ways of doing things were not keeping people right after high school or even in high school in the church. Maybe they come back later on when they had kids and everything, but we were maybe a little bit in that cycle where it wasn't so much about a movement socially.
Yeah, it is really interesting. Like he was saying, the Bible studies, the FCAs have to split up into 3 or 4 rooms right now, because there's too many people. The middle school that we meet in for our church, they just had to move spaces, because there's so many kids. They had to go to a bigger room on Friday mornings before school starts for middle schoolers.
Wow.
And so it's a really and Christian clothing now. I've also seen it done really wrong, but it's kind of like a fad right now. But like kids are wearing Christian clothing everywhere, which I don't know. I wasn't gonna do that in high school. I was kind of, I don't know. It wasn't really cool back then, but apparently it's cool now. And I don't really know what I think about that. But it's just interesting to see how
Sure.
these kids they're very passionate group of young people. And if it's faith, it's faith. If it's not, I mean, you got a whole gambit of technologies now of the kind of kids you can experience.
Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. It's just come full circle.
Yeah.
Our Christian T-shirts were always like hidden in like, knockoffs of brands or whatever, right? You would have like some Christian saying and like some, branded icon that was just different enough so it wasn't a copyright infringement, because we were trying to hide it. It wasn't like
a breadcrumb and fish instead of Abercrombie and Fitch.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. Yes,
The
good
Lord's
memory.
Gym. I
Yeah.
remember that one.
Lord's
Yeah.
Gym. But it wasn't like a hat with just Jesus on it, which I kind of
Yeah.
see a lot. Yeah, so
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting.
I'm wearing a Christian T-shirt today. I wore one to work. It's just a Christian hip hop group. So
Nice.
Caleb has all the band T-shirts from
Yeah.
30 years ago still. Oh, funny. Any other thing that you can kind of see that's changed over time, like how it functions maybe internally or amongst the community? I mean, a lot of things seem to be relatively the same. You're still trying to connect with youth. You're trying to connect their families and bring it through. And, Henry Michael, you were kind of saying that I liked your statement of their story is not done yet. And I think that's a good message, not just for parents, but for like high school kids as well. Cause I remember thinking that my life that's all that it was going to be, and obviously that's not it. And at some point you're just actually putting faith in God that he'll see them through their story, which of course he does. But in the middle of it, that can be really difficult. So I kind of liked how you said that. Anything else that you can think of that's different between how things were back then and now?
It's not a spiritual thing, but the thing I've talked about a lot with people is there's no one's TPing anybody's houses anymore. And I thank the Lord every day for that, because I TP'd John and Tim's house more than I can count. I deserve it. And it never happened to me, thankfully.
They're waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
John was waiting to be retired to have the time to do it to your house, so look out.
he's coming back. He's gonna fly in on a weekend.
That's right.
I have one tree, so I'm not scared right now, but if I ever move.
Yeah, I'm Henry, you mentioned earlier that some of the names are the same. I was going to ask if the kidnapping was still called the kidnapping. I understand that is not a thing anymore, as it probably shouldn't be. So yeah, times change.
But more of a spiritual answer. I think kids, one of my favorite things in youth ministry was a thing we did called junior senior Bible study. And originally it was for students who were juniors and seniors. And when I first came in, I was like the third or fourth youth pastor in about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so the older kids were kind of forgotten. It's easy to focus on the middle school and build up. And the junior senior Bible study just became a no hype Bible study where we had our own little traditions, a dumb game that we played at the end with some cookies, but it was really just a really deep conversation that the kids really enjoyed. We handed it off last year and it's grown. Like these kids are hungry, or they don't need the frills, they don't need the hype, the big games or anything like that. They're hungry for relationship and they're hungry for deep conversations. And I don't remember. Maybe it was just me. I wasn't in the place to want that in high school, but it gave me a chance to have my Johnisms, I guess, to say the things like, because I would say stuff like, I really, like a lot of kids would try to impress the adult in the room by their spiritual accomplishments, and not in the moment, but a lot of times I would say, like, guys, I don't care about your spiritual accomplishments. I really want you to ask the questions. I want you to ask the dumb question here. I don't want you to Google it. I don't want you to AI it. I don't want you to, ask your friend who's your same age. I want you to ask the dumb question. If I don't know the question, that's fine. But let's wrestle with it here before you have to wrestle with it when you have no support or maybe in a place that's a little bit different. And they were hungry for that. And so that's a little bit different, I think.
That's a cool approach. We have definitely talked to people who back in the day, and I still remember kind of having that spiritual homework is kind of the wrong word, but there's a lot of emphasis on discipleship. I'm sure you all still do discipleship, but I'm also sure it's different, interesting to hear that your take is, I don't care about the spiritual accomplishments. I do feel like we kind of had some of that in the 90s, right, Caleb? Like, recite to me this many verses, that sort of thing. And maybe that was a John thing, maybe not. But I think a lot of people that we've talked to, at least who are, in high school in the 90s, kind of had that feel of where there was sword drills or whatever the case may be of, knowing what you believe and being able to speak it clearly. But a lot of that was kind of knowing it up here and maybe avoiding some of the tougher questions down the road.
Yeah, and once you start doing it for a pat on the back, it's just a never-ending pursuit of trying to justify yourself to other people. And it's you have to be careful. I don't want to sound like I was mean to kids, but it was just more of if you're going to memorize scripture, I wanted you to have grown closer to Jesus rather than say I've memorized that scripture, And so the emphasis was always less is more, if that's what's growing you. Like the kids had the hardest time. I was like, read this passage by next week, and I want you to read it 20 times. And that was wild to them. They were just like, well, I'm not going to finish the whole book. I'm not going to get to I'm not going to accomplish this. I'm not going to do this. And so it was just kind of retraining, because school is all about getting it all done, doing as much as possible, sports and all these different things. And so hopefully at some point during their time, something maybe broke through a little bit on that. Because I know if I was in high school and my youth pastor told me that, I would probably be like, I'd probably ignore it too. But
we never ignored anything John said.
There was a time when Henry Michael was in college and he and a friend drove out to Indiana, and I think it was on their way back. They got a flat tire. And I don't know, did we have texting back then? I think we did. I think he texted me this. He says, Dad, Josh just showed me how to change a tire. You're a failure as a dad, or something like that. And I'm like, I can't remember if it was when he got back or if I texted it back. Like if I had when he was in high school said, "Let's go outside and let's learn how to change a tire,"
Yeah. Yep.
and he would have been rolling his eyes and he would have been not paying attention, and he still wouldn't have known how to change a tire. And I had conversations. I had a conversation with one of our students years ago who went to one of the local colleges and was walking away from his faith, and he was like making comments like nobody asked, we didn't learn how to answer these kinds of questions, and he, really philosophical questions. He was like reading Russians, Russian philosophers, and I'm like, if we had like addressed those kinds of questions, you wouldn't have shown up at youth group.
Mm.
You weren't ready for it then. Nobody was ready for it. Nobody, no, maybe two or three students, out of a group of maybe 50 are asking those kind of questions in high school, and
Hmm.
you have to deal with it when you get older. And that was one thing that I didn't know how to communicate to youth is like I've gone through huge times of doubt. I didn't go to like I did my doctorate at a secular university in religion and New Testament at a secular university,
Hmm.
um, and so my faith was challenged in huge ways, and even in high school, challenged in huge ways. And I had my doubts, and I had to go. So a lot of those kinds of questions, but you can't share that with youth. They're not ready to hear most of that stuff or to even understand what that would be like.
Hmm.
But you're kind of like you hope you can speak into their lives at that point, and then you don't get to. They're gone. And
Right.
so just thought I was having.
Yeah, no, that's a interesting thought that you put forth because part of me, as going through all these conversations, was like, well, why didn't we talk about the hard stuff back then? And that's like 45-year-old me talking,
Yeah.
about 15-year-old Scott. And you're right. It's probably like, yeah, even though it might have been interesting, like it wasn't the right time.
Mhm.
And you're trying to do too much anyway at that time. Like you can't sit down and go through, some sort of dissertation or apologetics about something. Like that's just not the right time, and you're not ready. The kids aren't ready for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do remember in high school, we brought in somebody who had gotten out of the Mormon church,
Hmm.
and I remember almost everything from it.
Oh,
That was the most interesting thing. I don't remember a single thing from youth group other than getting tackled by Mike
by
and
Mike.
doing dumb things
Yeah,
outside of it.
right.
And the trips, I remember the trips. I remember all those things. I don't remember a ton from youth group, but I remember that conversation very clearly. And I'll talk with somebody who knows a lot about Mormonism, and I'm like, is it true? Like that's the only time I've ever studied Mormonism, and I still remember like all of it, which I think is
Interesting.
fascinating. But
Yeah.
yeah,
There's a youth pastor. He's a author too, and apologist type person, and he would take his youth groups like over to Berkeley, and they would start spiritual conversations, the youth group, with college students at Berkeley in walking around in the public spaces,
Hmm.
and to prepare them for that, he would bring in atheists and a bunch of different kinds of people to present and challenge them, and for them to have to ask questions and learn from people that weren't people of the same faith, that kind of a
Hmm.
thing. So that's unique, but man, that's quite a unique that's a John type
I was
youth
gonna
pastor,
say.
but in a little bit of a different way.
Yeah.
Most I can't imagine pulling something like that off and pulling it off well and not having the youth group just dwindle to nothing because they're like, no way, that kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
he was able to pull it off. So it can happen. It's just not easy.
That's an intimidating proposition for anybody,
Right.
even an adult to go into that situation and do it. But I was going to say, was that youth pastor's name John? Because that
Yeah,
sounds like
right.
what he'd do for us. Going to the mall and telling us to meet people and tell them about Jesus in like the same conversation. Like, yikes, we were 15, 16 years old.
Right.
So, but it wasn't, it was an important part of it to him, right? Is being able to verbalize and talk about it and make sure that you're maybe not confident, but comfortable at least talking about it. And some people were, and some people weren't, and that's okay. It's just, they're all different personalities, but man, that sounds pretty intimidating. The question that wasn't on the list, that just came up is like the whole, obviously the deconstruction thing has been around for many years now. And it's something that people go through. Do you all see like people leaving, stepping away, backing away, not coming back more than before? Or is that just something that generally happens for one reason or another? And just the word for it now is deconstruction, and that's how it's happening? Or is it like really more so than ever before that people are leaving, whether they are youths or they are adults in the congregation?
Yeah, I've thought about that, and I really can't tell you personally whether when it didn't have a name, was it happening at just as high of a rate?
Mhm.
But yeah, and I think it's kind of coming to I don't think it's becoming less and less of a thing because of, like I was talking earlier, it's getting to be more and more that faith is the new, and as some people would say, maybe the rebellious thing to do, and so, or innovative
Mhm.
thing to do to kind of jump in.
Mhm.
And but yeah, I don't know. I'm fascinated by the whole deconstruction thing. Listen to a lot of uh, people that are either halfway in or had, and
Mhm.
kind of reconstructed differently, when they came back. But I've been fascinated by that subject.
Mhm. Henry Michael, have you seen anything at your students like that?
No, I mean, I hear about it, and it's not because I'm like such a great youth pastor or was such a great youth pastor or anything like that. I got to be careful how I say it. I've definitely seen it. I've definitely heard it. I see it more in people my age and maybe around like millennial type age.
Mhm.
I think if you just look at what's happening in Europe and the coasts right now, it's the opposite is happening in terms of a huge revival happening. And I think we're even seeing it within Cottage Grove with some of the students and the movement of students, and how it's just everything is blowing up in terms
Mhm.
of our youth group is blowing up. The FCA, like I said, the Bible studies, like it's everything is just massive. Kids are coming like crazy. And
Mhm.
it's not because FCA has been around forever,
Yeah.
We've been a youth group since 1989, and we're not doing the things that some of the other churches are doing. Like we don't have a climbing wall, and we teach pretty like longer sermons than probably most youth groups do. Kids are coming, they're hungry for it. And so I'm seeing kind of a reversal, and even in adults of just from our church when we're starting, our people are spiritually hungry, but we're also seeing, and I think, and I don't want to talk like I know all these stats or anything, but it's just all like the fragmentation of politics right now,
Mhm.
and co-opting it with politics, faith and politics, and on either side. And so it's not necessarily deconstruction I'm seeing as much as more as like there's this revival over here, and then there's co-opting to the left Christian, co-opting to the right Christian, and there's not as many people who are just like, well, I'm just neutrally not a part of either of it.
Mhm.
um, but that's my experience. But the emails I get and the podcasts I listen to, that's what I'm hearing and seeing.
Well, let's read some of those emails. No, I can't even imagine. I can't imagine the type of emails you all get or have gotten over the years. But yeah, well, yeah. The reason I ask is because we've obviously talked to many different people from many walks, and I've gone through my own thing, and I just always hope that wherever people are at, they find their way back.
Mhm.
Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. For someone like me and other people I know, I think the reason that they can is because they did have a lot of that solid foundation during their youth group time. Um, it is something that is still meaningful to them. It's still meaningful to me. It still shapes who I am and that sort of thing. Even though there's some things that have changed, but like part of the reason I'm able to like bring my son to youth group and be here on Sundays is that stuff was such an impact to me during that time.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think, yeah, the ones that are coming back and come back different, thank God, not the same as we were in the 90s in so many different ways. But yeah, I wish some people would wrestle a little bit more honestly. Sometimes
Interesting.
deconstruction thing, this is, every case is different, of course, and I don't judge any particular person, but I feel from what I hear sometimes when I hear these conversations is like there was just not as thoughtful as it could have been, or not as yeah, it's opening a can of worms. I don't even I don't even want to go there right now, but it just feels like there could be a lot more thought given to it a lot of times.
Yeah, it's a process. It's not just a decision, right?
Right.
It's a internal conversation that should happen for a lengthy amount of time, and maybe for some people it's just an out. But yeah, again, things that you've probably heard and get emails about that I can't imagine. So, well, you guys have spent quite a bit of time with us tonight. We really, really appreciate this conversation. It's been really awesome just to, hear what you have to say and talk to you guys a little bit. How overall has youth group contributed to the person you are today, and whether that's Five Oaks specifically or other ones you've been in? Like, how does that make you who you are?
Personally, in my own youth group experience, back in youth group in the 70s, it is what caused me to go into vocational ministry. It was youth group, and part of the reason was almost not our youth pastor. We had a lady who was a volunteer. She was probably in her 50s. She was an amazing dynamo, kind of a John Stern type of. Oh, sorry, last name. A John.
Everybody knows his last name.
Okay, leader. But most of the youth pastors in our denomination that I was in, the Christian Missionary Alliance, were doing 2 years of work here in the country before going to become missionaries. They had to put in 2 years, and they all became youth pastors. And so most of the youth pastors were like budding missionaries who are going to go to some faraway place, and they would challenge us in a lot of ways. I had a whole conference right after Christmas. We would go up to Northern Florida. I'm from Miami area, and it was called our Christmas conference at our camp with churches from all over, and run by these youth pastors. And the whole thing was, you ought to go into missions. You ought to consider missions. And so it had a big impact on me and what I decided to do personally with life.
Wow.
Yeah. For me, I think it's been I've listened to a lot of the ones of this podcast of the people that I know, especially, and it's been well documented that I was a difficult youth, especially in middle school. So I want to set the record straight. It was mostly in middle school, and I remember having a conversation with Tim. He was probably a couple of years in to youth being a youth pastor. He was my small group leader when John was still a youth pastor.
Yep.
And I was getting in trouble, and I was also leading other people to get in trouble and get kicked out of youth group every single week. And he finally pulled me aside, and it was one of those conversations that was like, "Hey, you're a leader, and you're either going to lead people for good or for bad." And it's one of those conversations that it can be one of those throwaway, like, I just hope they act better type of conversations. But I think it was really helpful for me to hear that and to be challenged in that way. And I always remember it. I kind of remember, maybe it's just I'm putting that memory in there because I'm here at Five Oaks still a lot. But I feel like I remember being the room he even said it in. And so it was just a very impactful moment for me that I think, even though I didn't always want to go into ministry, was something that I was like, well, I know I can at least be involved and lead in small groups or in church or wherever.
Sure. That's awesome. Yeah. Sometimes those conversations land and you just don't know it, but it's really important to have them because you just don't know. You just don't know how it's going to affect people. So, Well, if you've listened, you know that I do like to ask questions. This is specifically for you, Henry Michael. What is the craziest, grossest thing you can remember doing? We've talked about many things, kidnapping and that sort of thing. Pretend your dad's not here. Tell us, like, what is the thing that kind of not got you in trouble the most? It was just the most audacious thing you can remember doing.
Oh, okay. I have so many, and I was ready to share all of them, but I won't. I'm going to share really briefly one because it's gross and I think it may have been shared. I'm not sure. I just remember at a Camp Getaway, we did one of those games where you scoop something out of an armpit, and it was out of Scott's armpit, and someone got bread and had to eat it. And I just thought that was so disgusting. And somebody, and that toothbrush game where you brush your teeth, spit, and then the last person has to drink it. Oh,
Yeah.
I couldn't handle that one. But my favorite memory of all is we so Wes was one of our leaders. Do you remember Wes?
Terry?
Yeah.
We'll bleep that out, but yeah.
Yeah. So
From my church in Wichita.
That's right.
yeah. So Wes brought David and I to go saran wrap, I think, Bill Good's car. Because that's just what we did. He was our intern, and so we were there. We had a thing of syrup and a bunch of saran wrap, and David just had like meniscus surgery, and so he was like in this like leg cast thing, and just wanted to go along for the ride. And we're about to start, and I think Kara came out and saw us and like yelled inside because they were at Mike's house.
Yep.
And yells in, and all of a sudden Mike just comes tearing out of the house, like just angry. I think he was obviously wearing a wife beater because that's just who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And we just sprinted. Poor David can't run. And so, but Mike didn't care. So Mike lifted him up by his underwear, dumped the entire bottle of syrup down his pants. Wes and I were safe in the car, and all we could hear in the background or in like the distance was just this high blood curdling scream. And both Wes and I got away scot-free, and we didn't even try to help David, but he finally limped up to the car, sore, sticky. I can't remember what happened after that, but I'll always remember that moment.
Oh my gosh.
That is classic youth group, and also classic Mike. Like, he treated you in particular like the littlest of little brothers, and I don't know what it was. He just kind of had the eyes for you about that. So,
and I had two of his kids go through. He has 4 kids in the youth group now, I think, or has 3 now. One's graduated.
Yeah,
and his second oldest is a senior, and his second oldest, who's a senior now. I would just try to be mean to him, and I would tell him it's because your dad was mean to me.
There you go.
That's the only reason why I'm doing this. And so I created this point system where like he would gain or lose favor by the points that I would give him, and he's always in the negative 1,000 of points, and became a little game for us. So I wasn't always as mean as he was, but there's a little game we played.
Sure.
Which is terrible to hear because Mike's kids are not at all like him. They are completely like their mother. And
good.
All of them.
Good.
You know?
Yeah.
To be mean to one of these sweet kids, that's just horrible.
Sins of the fathers.
You took the words out of my mouth. Well, and I think that, frankly, is a nice way to wrap it up, right? What a testament to the place that we had, for better or worse, of just like Mike came as an invite from, I can't remember, Caleb, one of us, right? Leah, right? Thank you. He came as an invite. You know, she was a cheerleader. He was on the football team or whatever. He's never left.
No.
And his kids are going through it, and the kid that he was beating up on all the time is leading them. Like, and we don't live, for the listener out there who isn't familiar, Woodbury is not a small town. This is not some like family ministry thing. It's a very large, continuing to grow town. It probably has like 5 zip codes now or something, you know, and it's like it's huge. And that being said, the Cottage Grove right next to it is now also involved. And it's really cool to hear these stories, remember them, and then just think like, man, that's all that work that John did, Tim did, and everyone that's come after them. I know there are people before John too. All the work that they did to create that, and it's lasted this long, is frankly pretty amazing.
One time Lois was, I think it was when like 25th anniversary or something like that, and they had some kind of reception after the service. Somebody said 25th anniversary for me. Somebody said to Lois, my wife, they said, what's it like being here for 25 years? And at that moment, Brant, Hector and Beth's son, walks by. And she goes, well, I remember when he was in high school and getting kicked out of things. And so, but here he is, and he's got teenage kids, you know, or at that point, I think they were still in elementary school, and he plays the bass and on the band and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be at the same place for this many years. And even though you guys are living, you know, miles and miles away, to be able to reconnect like this and see you guys. And I just love this, and it just enriches my life in such a huge way. I'm so filled with gratitude completely.
Well, it's very kind of you to say. At least we could do for all the stuff that you did to us, you know. So for us, it's been awesome. So
or to us, if it was
to us, and well, John did the to us, and you did the for us. But no, I've been excited to have this conversation for quite some time. So really appreciate you guys carving out some time tonight. Really great to reconnect, and hopefully it's not we don't talk. The next time we talk is in 30 years from now, or however long it's been. But you know, congrats on continuing to go strong there at Five Oaks and Oaks now, and make a big difference. Because you know, no matter what, whether we think or whether you think you're making a difference or not, you are. So
yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, anyway, thanks guys. Thanks for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. We hope you enjoyed it. Once again, we want to say a huge thank you to Henry and Henry Michael for taking some time to talk to us about the youth group, about their youth group experience, about all sorts of different things, and just covering a whole bunch of different topics. Thanks so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. I'll let you know what you thought about this show or any of our other shows. You can find us on Twitter at the handle @SurvivedYG. Full disclosure, we have not tweeted in quite a while. You can also find us you can also email us at isurvivedyouthgroup@gmail.com. Please subscribe, share the podcast if you're so inclined, leave a rating or review. If you enjoy this show, you might also enjoy the other podcast I work on. It's a music podcast, and it's called the Album Anniversary Podcast. We just take a look at classic albums we love. We break them down. We talk about music for a little bit. Once again, that's called the Album Anniversary Podcast. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
So keep the recording going here. You can put this as an epilogue maybe, but I wanted to, it's a story that keeps coming back to my mind. So Caleb, your dad, you know, was one of the elders, and, you know, pastoral team it was called, and eventually became elders. And he was famously, at least I knew it, I think most people knew, probably the only Democrat in our entire church. And years later, this guy who eventually we hired on the janitorial staff, he was in construction, became a Christian, just dropped by in the church on a Saturday. You know, they led him to Christ, a couple people that were there praying, and started coming to church, and for years stayed, you know, with our church until they moved. And but early on, he was really growing in his faith, and all of a sudden he came to me one day and he goes, I don't know if I can say Five Oaks. I said, why not? He goes, everybody, I think, is a Republican. And I'm a union guy, and I'm a Democrat. All my life, I'm not going to become a Republican. But I don't think I can stay here. I'm like, no, wait, what? You know? And then I told him about your dad. I said, wait, you know,
Hold on, I've got a guy for this.
I've got one. I've got one that I know. There probably were some others, over the years, but famously, evangelicals are Republicans, and there's some important historical reasons for that. But it just that kept coming to my mind the whole time that we were talking.
How funny.
Yeah, no, I think my dad was pretty well known. I know my small group is well aware that I've kept in my dad's footsteps, and
Yeah, good.
I'm really thankful. I go to a pretty mainline evangelical church, and I can be pretty honest with the guys I go to small group with, and I feel really fortunate, because I'll say it, some of the previous churches I went to, I was told to leave, or I was called stupid at a church event because of my political leanings that I probably did very much inherit from my parents. But yeah, so I mean, I feel really fortunate to be at a place where I can say things, and I can say, "Oh, it's really frustrating for me right now," or I wish there was more dialogue about this. And none of the guys in my small group are gonna balk at it, and even if they disagree with me, there's still like oh, I see where you're coming from. Let's talk about it, and that's pretty amazing. So yeah.
And I think there's more of that kind of health around than we would realize. It's not like the whole evangelical church has become MAGA or anything like that. And a lot of people that are still Republican are holding their noses and kind of waiting. And so
it's easy when it's advertised so much and that's all you hear about, right? And we're here, we travel half an hour. Part of the reason I was late is because traffic was really bad, right? And we bring our son here, and we come here every Sunday for many reasons. One of them being is there's a mix, and they don't push it from the pulpit, and it's just not a thing. It's just not part of the conversation. Kind of to Henry Michael's point earlier, there's so many people in that middle ground who don't want to have anything to do with it. It's like we don't even want to talk about it. We just want to talk about Jesus by himself and unto himself. And I think you're right. Those congregations are out there more than we know.
Yeah.
I do like the idea of my dad being in like a Captain America-esque tube that like, you're like, hold on, I got a guy. And you open it up and he steps out, and it's like, ready to. Now here's how I voted. Here's my ballot for the last 4 elections. I can prove it.
That's funny.
This is maybe my favorite note I've ever written down during a podcast is Mike delivers a beating. It's one of my sections.
That's right. I have to give these podcasts a subtitle. Maybe that's the subtitle.
Mike delivers a beating.
Yeah, that's right.
What did Bash Night stand for? I remember what Barf Night stand for. Bring a real friend.
Bring a student.
Bring a student home?
Oh,
Bring a student home.
Yeah,
I don't know. Church home?
Bring a student here, maybe. I don't know.
That's even creepier. Oh my goodness, I can't remember. But I can't remember.
Because
something along the lines of bring a friend or
bring oh my gosh. Well, you got to figure somebody.
Yeah.
Send that out and
come to me in the middle of the night.
Text him right now.
I was like, what the heck? I was staring at it and I was like, I can't think of anything that bring a student. Yeah. Anyway,
Tim will know. And then it'll be really obvious and we'll feel stupid. Not
yeah.